Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into some incredibly important and, yeah, honestly, some difficult information today.
Hmm.
If you work in construction, especially if you're doing FIFO here in Western Australia, this deep dive is really tailored for you.
That's right.
We're going deep on a recent study out of the University of Western Australia. It's called Constructing a Safer Industry.
Yeah, it's a really significant piece of work done by Dr. Lizette Cansey and Professor Gillian Yeo over at UWA Psychology and the Business School.
Right, experts in this area.
Absolutely. Their focus is, work, health, well-being, especially in demanding jobs. Exactly what this report looks at.
And our mission here really is to take this big report. They surveyed, what, over 1,700 workers?
1,743, yeah, right across WA construction.
So take that report and pull out the absolute key things you need to know. We want you walking away understanding what this research found about mental health. Suicidal thoughts, behaviors, other challenges.
And importantly, why? What factors at work and in personal life seem to be contributing? And they were careful, used proper methods, weighting the survey results to make sure it reflects the industry as a whole.
So these aren't just random numbers.
No, definitely not. They represent the reality for thousands of people out there on sites, doing the swings day in, day out.
Okay, well, let's get straight to the toughest part then, because it really shows why this conversation is so urgent.
Yeah.
This is the headline finding, really. The UWA study found WA construction workers report suicidal thoughts and behaviors much more often than other Australians.
Alarmingly more often. The report says approximately 3 times higher than the general adult population.
3 times. Just let that sink in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look at the specifics, it gets, well, even clearer and, frankly, quite concerning.
So, like, suicidal thoughts, just thinking about it.
Right. Lifetime suicidal thoughts ever having seriously considered it. The study found 28.5% of WA construction workers reported that.
Okay. And for the general population.
So it's 16.7%. So already a lot higher in construction.
But it's the recent stuff, the last year, where the difference is huge, right?
That's where it really jumps out. Suicidal thoughts in the past 12 months. For WA construction workers, that was 10.7%.
10.7%. Okay.
Now compare that to the general adult population rate, which is 3.3%.
Wow. That is over 3 times higher just in the last year.
Exactly. Think about the people you work with. That rate suggests it's touching a lot of lives right now.
And it goes beyond just thoughts to actually making plans.
Yes. The study looked at that too. Developing a plan is often seen as, a step further down that path.
So what were those numbers?
Lifetime suicide plans, 12.9% of workers reported having made one. The general population rate is 7.6%. So again, higher, about 1.7 times.
And in the last 12 months, that's the really critical window.
And again, a bigger gap. 4.6% of WA construction workers reported planning suicide in the past year.
4.6%. And the general population?
Only 1.2%.
So nearly 4 times higher.
Yeah, 3.8 times higher. It's a stark difference.
Did they look at attempts as well?
They did. The comparisons to the general population weren't always direct in the summary parts, but they did show differences within the industry.
Like what?
Well, for instance, workers who were divorced or separated, they reported a lifetime suicide attempt rate of 16.9%.
Okay.
Compare that to married workers in the survey, where the rate was 4.4%. That's 3.8 times higher for the divorced or separated group.
So personal circumstances clearly play a big role, too.
Absolutely. It shows how life stress interacts with the pressures of the job.
These numbers, they're just incredibly serious. It's not abstract data, is it? It's people, mates, colleagues.
Couldn't agree more. It paints a picture of a real crisis needing urgent attention. And, the report doesn't just stop at suicide risk.
Right. It looks at broader mental health, too.
Exactly. Things often linked to these really severe outcomes, like psychological distress.
Okay, what does that mean exactly? Anxiety, depression?
Yeah, basically symptoms of anxiety and depression. They used a standard tool, the K-10 scale, looking at the past month.
And the findings there, did they match the suicide risk data?
They mirrored it, yeah. Really high levels of distress.
Give us the numbers.
Okay, so almost a third, 32.1% of WA construction workers reported high or very high psychological distress.
That's third. Wow.
Yeah, broken down, it was 20% high and 12.1% very high.
And how does that stack up against the general population?
General population rate for high or very high is 16.7%. That's 11.1% high and 5.6% very high.
So again, much higher in construction.
Significantly higher. The rate of high distress is 1.8 times higher, and the rate of very high distress, that's 2.2 times higher.
That's a lot of people just struggling day to day.
It really is, carrying a heavy mental load.
And were there specific groups feeling it more?
Yes, the data pointed to that. Female workers reported very high rates, 46.4% high, or very high distress.
Nearly half.
Yeah. Also younger workers, 16 to 24s, LGBTQAI plus individuals, people who are single or de facto, less experienced workers, apprentices, DIDO workers too, shows the pressure isn't felt equally by everyone.
The report mentioned burnout, too. We hear that word a lot.
We do. It's that sort of prolonged exhaustion, physical and emotional, usually from work stress.
How common was that?
The study used a single question on burnout symptoms. About 30.8% of workers said they'd experienced at least one symptom, so nearly 1 in 3 again.
Okay, now this next bit feels really important, maybe a bit, I don't know, heartbreaking, people struggling but not realizing it, or not feeling they need help.
Yeah, this was a really concerning finding. The data showed, among those who'd had recent suicidal thoughts, 2.1% of them actually reported having no mental health issues.
Wow, despite having those thoughts.
Exactly. And similarly, among those who score at high or very high on psychological distress, 10.7% of them also said they had no mental health issues.
So the distress is there, the risk is there, but the self-awareness or the willingness to call it what it is isn't always there.
Precisely. Figure 12 in the report really shows that disconnect. It suggests things like stigma, maybe just not knowing the signs, or other barriers are stopping people from seeing their own struggle or reaching out.
Which makes getting help to the right people really tricky.
Incredibly challenging.
Okay, let's shift slightly, but stay connected. Substance use. The study looked into that too, right? Often linked to coping or maybe making things worse.
Yes, definitely. And the data here is also quite revealing, especially when you compare it to the general population again. Tells a story about the pressures, maybe the culture too.
So starting with alcohol, what did the numbers show?
Well, when workers self-categorized, about a third, 33.6%, called themselves binge drinkers and nearly 18% heavy drinkers.
Okay. And the comparison using standard definitions, like risky drinking.
That's where it gets really stark. Using standard health definitions, for binge drinking, females in WA construction were 2.5 times more likely to do it than females generally.
36.8% versus 9.5%.
2.5 times.
Yeah. And males are 1.5 times more likely, 36.9% versus 21.1%. And risky drinking, which I think is 5 or more drinks on a typical occasion.
Right. The gap there is even bigger. Females in construction were over 3 times more likely, 31.1% versus 9.5%.
3 times?
And males, nearly 2 times more likely, 38.4% versus 21.1%. These are really substantial differences in drinking patterns.
Were certain groups drinking more?
Yes. Younger workers, the 16 to 24s, had incredibly high rates. 45.6% binge drinking, nearly 59% risky drinking.
Wow, nearly 60%.
Yeah. Also apprentices, on-site workers generally, and DIDO workers actually had the highest binge drinking rate at 53.1%.
Over half.
And FIFO workers had high risky drinking, around 41%. So yeah, definite patterns related to age, maybe experience, and the work setup itself.
And then there's illicit drug use. The numbers there were high, too.
Concerningly high, yes. Past 12-month use among WA construction workers was 37.4%.
Okay. And the general population rate?
That's 15.1%.
So nearly 2.5 times higher again.
Exactly.
What kinds of drugs were most common, and how did those rates compare?
Most common were marijuana, about 33%, then cocaine, hallucinogen, ecstasy, MDMA, all around 17-18%.
Okay.
But the comparison, that's where it's alarming. Ecstasy MDMA use was 8 times higher than the general population. Hallucinogens 7 times higher, meth 6 times higher, cocaine 4 times higher.
8 times higher for ecstasy. That's huge.
It's a massive difference. Really points to something different happening in this group.
And it wasn't just occasional use of one drug for some people.
No. The study found nearly 1 in 10, 9.4%, reported using 5 or more different types of illicit drugs in the past year.
5 or more? That's significant polydrug use.
It is.
Who was more likely to report drug use?
Workers with less experience, under 2 years, had high rates, over 41%. Apprentices were even higher, 50%.
Half of apprentices.
Yeah. Also, laborers, technicians, trade workers, people working on site generally.
And the report connects this substance use directly back to suicide risk, doesn't it?
It does. It clearly states that higher alcohol consumption, and particularly using more types of drugs, was linked to higher rates of recent suicidal thoughts and plans.
So it's not separate. It's part of the bigger picture of mental health struggle.
Absolutely. It can be a coping mechanism, sure,
Yeah.
but one that often worsens the underlying issues and increases risk.
Right. Okay, let's move from sort of individual factor like substance use to the work environment itself, the pressures at work,
Yeah, the study looked closely at workplace factors, both the things that increase risk and things that might protect people.
like bullying. That came up.
Unfortunately, yes. It was identified as a significant risk factor.
How common was it?
Pretty common. 28% of people said they've been bullied in the last 6 months.
Over a quarter.
Yeah. Now, most said it was now and then, about 22%. But you still had around 3% experiencing it daily or weekly.
Daily or weekly bullying. That's
Right.
intense pressure.
It is. And the report noted males actually reported higher rates of that daily, weekly bullying than females. Also, LGBTQAI plus individuals and apprentices had a really high rate. 8% reported daily or weekly bullying.
8% of apprentices.
Yeah. Laborers, too, and DIDO and FIFO workers also had higher rates of frequent bullying. And the link was clear. Being bullied meant higher risk of suicidal thoughts.
Another big one, especially for FIFO, you'd think, is work-life conflict.
Absolutely. The clash between job demands and personal life.
What did the data show there?
It's a major factor. Over a third, 37.6%, said their work frequently interfered with their personal or family life.
That feels like it would resonate with a lot of listeners dealing with long hours, being away.
I think so. And the groups reporting it most were those aged 25-54, people married or de facto makes sense, more family demands perhaps.
Right.
Managers actually reported high rates, nearly half. Laborers too. And yeah, DIDO workers, 48.4%, and FIFO workers, 44.2%, were right up there. Also workers with more experience, interestingly.
And that conflict was linked to higher risk as well.
Yes, associated with higher suicidal thoughts and plans. Maybe not as strongly as some other factors, but the link was definitely there.
Then there was presenteeism. That's going to work when you're sick.
Exactly, dragging yourself in when you feel you probably should have taken sick leave.
How common was that?
Shockingly common. Almost half, 47.7%, reported doing it.
Wow, nearly 1 in 2 workers. Who was doing that most?
Females reported higher rates, 53.9%. Also LGBTQAI plus individuals, those divorced or separated, and professionals.
And that's also linked to poorer mental health.
Yes, presenteeism was associated with higher suicidal ideation and plans, too. It suggests people feel pressured, maybe financially or culturally, to push through when they shouldn't, and that takes a toll.
Okay, so those are some big risk factors in the workplace. But it wasn't all negative, right? The study looked at protective factors, too.
Absolutely crucial point, yes. Support within the workplace makes a massive difference.
From colleagues, from supervisors.
Exactly. What did the report find there? How supported do people feel?
Well, the numbers show there's room for improvement. About a third, 33.9%, felt they often or always got support from colleagues.
Okay, 1/3.
And slightly less, 29.9%, felt they often or always got support from their immediate supervisor.
So roughly 2/3 are not feeling consistently supported by colleagues or supervisors.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. And the impact of not feeling supported was really clear in the data.
Very clear.
Yeah.
Lower perceived support from colleagues was linked to higher suicidal thoughts,
Mhm.
and lower support from supervisors. That was linked to higher suicidal thoughts and plans.
So that supervisor relationship is absolutely critical.
It really highlights the vital role of leadership, doesn't it? And just basic peer support, looking out for each other.
Were some groups feeling less supported than others?
Yes, males reported less support than females, both from colleagues and supervisors. Younger workers, 16-24, felt less supported by supervisors. Straight individuals reported less support than LGBTQAI plus individuals.
Right.
Apprentices felt less supported. Only 30% felt colleagues often supported them. Only 27% felt supervisors did.
Those apprentice numbers are low.
They are. Technicians and trained workers reported the lowest support overall. And FIFO workers. This really stood out. They reported particularly low supervisor support. Only 20.3% said they often or always got it.
Wow. Only 1 in 5 FIFO workers feeling consistently supported by their supervisor. That's a huge potential gap.
It really is a major flag.
Okay, so stepping outside the work site now,
Right.
personal life stuff, that plays a big role too, obviously.
Hugely important. Work and life aren't separate bubbles.
The report mentioned loneliness. What was the finding there?
This was interesting. Loneliness came out as the strongest predictor of suicidal ideation in this particular study group.
The strongest predictor. That feels really significant, especially, again, for FIFO-DIDO workers away from home.
You'd think so. But here's the slightly paradoxical part the report noted.
Oh,
The actual rates of loneliness reported in this survey seem to be a bit lower than some general population data. And another national survey suggested construction workers generally report less loneliness than other jobs.
right. So how does that work? It's the strongest predictor of risk here, but maybe less common overall.
It's complex. One interpretation is that perhaps while overall loneliness might be lower, when people do experience it in this industry, maybe it hits harder.
Ah,
Perhaps because of the environment, the expectations of toughness, maybe it feels more isolating or harder to admit when you are lonely. So the impact could be greater, even if the raw numbers reporting it seem lower than expected.
that makes sense. It's not just if it happens, but how it feels in this context. What about support outside work, family, friends?
Yeah, a crucial buffer, and mostly people reported high levels of support there, which is good news.
But again, were there groups with less support?
Yes, divorced or separated workers reported lower support across the board, family, friends, partners. Apprentices reported lower support from family and partners.
And FIFO workers.
They showed lower levels of family support specifically. Over half, about 51% of FIFO workers and 51% of rural workers reported low family support. Again, that distance factor, perhaps.
And lower support from family, friends, partners, linked to higher risk.
Definitely. Low support from any of those sources was linked to higher rates of recent suicidal thoughts. The difference was really stark for support from a significant other.
How stark.
26.6% of those with low partner support reported recent suicidal thoughts, compared to just 7.7% of those with high partner support.
Wow, that's over 3 times the risk. Shows how vital that close relationship can be.
Huge difference.
Okay, last major area of financial well-being. How did that factor in?
Well, most workers, 56%, said they were getting by. About 16.5% felt they were doing great. Pretty similar levels to the general population, actually.
Okay, but was there a link to mental health risk?
Yes, a clear one. Those who said they were having trouble financially had the highest rate of recent suicidal ideation, 18.9%.
Okay, nearly 1 in 5.
Which was 2.6 times higher than those just getting by, who were at 8.9%.
Right. So financial stress is a definite risk factor. What about those doing great? Were they the lowest risk?
Interestingly, no. Their rate was 11.2%, still higher than the getting by group.
Huh. So money helps buffer against trouble, but just having lots of it isn't the ultimate protection.
Exactly. It suggests other factors like that support we talked about, connection, purpose. Yeah. They're incredibly important regardless of your bank balance.
Okay. So let's try and pull this all together. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of, frankly, quite heavy data from this UWA study.
We have.
What's the big picture message here, especially for you listening right now? Maybe you're on site, on swing, maybe just starting out in construction.
I think the big picture is challenging but clear. It shows that the high rates of suicidal thoughts, the distress, the substance use, it's all interconnected.
Right.
It's linked to things like burnout, loneliness, definitely bullying and work-life conflict, and crucially, how much support you feel you have, both on the job and off the job.
And certain groups seem to be carrying more of that burden. FIFO, DIDO, apprentices, younger workers.
Yeah, the data consistently pointed to higher vulnerability in several areas. For those groups, more substance use reported, more conflict or bullying, less support felt.
It really drives home that this isn't about individuals being weak, is it?
Not at all. The study makes it crystal clear this is a systemic issue. It's rooted in the pressures, the environment, the culture of the industry itself.
Which means the solutions need to be systemic, too.
Exactly. And that's where the report's recommendations come in. It's not just diagnosing the problem, it's pointing towards solutions.
What kind of things does it recommend?
Action at all levels. For the whole sector, for individual companies, for support services, things like making mental health just as important as physical safety in all policies and procedures.
Like it's just part of the job safety analysis.
Precisely. Fostering positive relationships, they specifically mention buddy systems. Having zero tolerance for bullying, seriously implementing that. Looking at flexible work where it's possible.
And making help easy to find.
Absolutely. Yeah. Accessible resources, maybe digital tools people can use privately, clear pathways to support services like Mates and others, making it easy and normal to reach out.
So yeah, the UWA study paints a stark picture, a significant mental health crisis, much higher rates than the general population. But it also offers a way forward.
I think so. Look, facing these numbers about suicide risk, distress, it's tough. We get that. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But understanding why, seeing the risks laid out, but
Yeah.
also seeing the things that protect people, like strong support from supervisors, from mates, from family that's powerful. That's the first step.
It shows where we need to focus efforts, where support really can make a life-saving difference. It
Exactly.
makes you think, doesn't it? This industry, it's all about building things. Strength, structure, solid foundations.
Mhm.
But maybe this report is telling us the most critical foundation we need to build, or maybe strengthen, is the well-being of the people doing the work. How do we take that incredible resilience, that mateship that does exist, the strength needed for this job, and channel it into looking out for each other's mental health?
Yeah.
Making it okay to say you're not okay. Making checking in on a mate as routine as checking your PPE. How do we make that as fundamental as putting on the hard hat? That feels like the real challenge and the opportunity this data brings into focus.